Activate.
Hey everybody, welcome to this Pink Cloud. I am DJ Kelly Reverb. You have tuned in to another happy day here. Excited to be here. Be sure, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Sitting in with me is the slightly disgruntled, but I would say less than normal disgruntled level. Give it up for Chaff LeMans.
There's nothing to be disgruntled at in this entire United World. I think the entire United World could do much better job of not being so disgruntled if all they did was shop at Tom Thumb grocery stores and listen to Madonna.
And there we have it. It was funny.
That seemed like I rehearsed that. That was so
It
quick.
was. I
Yeah.
think you have, dude.
Yeah.
I
And then I
think you've
switched the
done
camera
that
off
before.
after.
That is actually the character Croissant LeMans.
Yeah, that's
everybody
Croissant.
for those of y'all that don't know. Anyway, I'm excited to have this young man on the show. I actually came across him on the interwebs on Instagram. And he popped up in my feed, and I was like, oh, this guy, I got to follow this guy. And then sent him a DM, and then all of a sudden, magically, voila, he is on the show. So everybody give it up for Tim Ryan, a.k.a. Dope Man.
What's up, gentlemen? Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
man.
Well, we appreciate you being on. So I was watching some of your reels, and I was just like, oh my God, this guy, could rival Chad or be his spirit animal, so to speak. But why don't you kind of give everybody your background and we'll ask questions, but I can't wait to hear it.
Shit. I'll give you a quick thumbnail sketch.
Okay.
Tim Ryan, great for recovering alcoholic. That's what I am. And drug addict. I hailed from the northern suburbs of Illinois and grew up on a lake, and I was left to my own devices. I was a middle kid, had an older brother, little brother and sister. We're all adopted. My brother and sister were three-quarter Chippewa Indians, so we grew up with a lot of racism. And where we grew up in northern Illinois, it was on a lake. We're about a half hour south of the Wisconsin border, and if I wasn't water skiing, fishing, sailing, ice skating, the lake was my world. I struggled in school, the ADD, the learning disabilities, the dyslexia. Older brother beat me up for years every day, molested by the babysitter. Ooh, there's my pot full of fucking trauma. But I didn't know what any of I didn't know what any of that was until I actually got into recovery. But, was drinking at 14 and snorting cocaine at 15 and barely getting out of high school, but there was no consequences. We lived on a lake. We had the boat. You either bring boat gas, you bring some booze, but nobody was getting arrested. There was no DUIs, and that's when my journey continued. I went down to college in Louisiana on a water ski scholarship. Yes, I actually have.
Okay, yeah. Wait, hold on. I got to stop there. So there is a water ski scholarship, and
Lots of them.
Was it for like LSU or what? What was it?
Northeast Louisiana University, Monroe, Louisiana. They had the best. So I went there. I had my backpack packed, and I was moving to Hawaii with my buddy Trace, and I got this last ditch thing. I had the opportunity to get on the water ski team, but it was three to one girl to guys. I could hunt and fish, and it was the last state to have the drinking age 18, and they had open admissions. Because Christ, I had a 1.4 grade average. I took the ACT 5
right.
times. I
you
got
were
a fucking 11.
You were academically thriving.
Shit, I'm 56. I don't know what a verb, a pronoun, an adjective, a conjunctive is, nor do I give a shit,
Right.
But,
right.
College, I never got on the water ski team because I was told I was a liability. But
imagine that.
Louisiana was a blast. And
oh, yeah.
I got into running drugs because up until 85, I went to college in 86. In 85, ecstasy was legal in the state of Texas. They sold it
Well,
in bars. They used
hi,
it for,
we're from Dallas, by the way.
yeah, there you go.
Start Club.
We'd go to Vicksburg, Mississippi, pick up 10 grand cash from this dude. I charge him $7 a pill. We'd go to Dallas or Houston, pick up 10,000 hits, come back. We're getting them for $1 a piece and making a lot of money. And that's just a lot of me, the opportunity to do more cocaine, and you could pick magic mushrooms. And I was the first white guy in the state of Louisiana to pledge an all black fraternity. I mean, it was a different time. But I dropped out. I came back and got into odd jobs and smoking cocaine and dealing cocaine. And my recovery journey started in January of 1990 when I opened a phone book and I checked myself into treatment at 21 years old. So that's where it all started. And I went in with the thought pattern, man, I want to quit doing coke and figure out how to drink like a normal person, because I thought it was the cocaine that was the issues, not the alcohol. And, going through treatment, I learned it and get a sponsor and go to meetings. And I did that for about a year. And me and my buddy had a barefoot water ski school. And I had an asphalt seal coating business. Had all my buddies working for me. And I'd go to meetings every day. But I was the guy that would do this. I'm looking for a sponsor, and nobody would pick on me and be like, yes, I got away with it again.
Jackpot.
See, I'm the guy that thought I could get sober through osmosis. If I hang out with sober people, I'm going to get sober. And as I reflect on my life now, I really wish, and you got to understand, back in 1990, there wasn't too many 21-year-olds walking into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
And it was all older people, and you'd sit around and play gin and chain smoke, but nobody ever sat me down and said, hey, Tim, this is why we go through the steps. This is what's going to happen. This is why you want to help other people. And I just circled, left to my own devices, and moved to Texas.
Well, and I think, hey, I want to interrupt you real quick, but I think that's an important thing you said is nobody really points out the whole design of AA and the 12 steps. Is the 12 steps is for you, designed for you to deal with your shit. And people, if they would just simplify it, and I don't think it would look as culty and as maybe off-putting as some people take it. And
this cult bullshit, I'll take this cult any day of the week.
Hell yeah.
I can go anywhere in the world and go to a meeting and be surrounded by people like you immediately, and we talk the same talk. Where I live here in Lake Worth Beach, Florida, I went to go pick up Aussie bowls for my wife and I, and my buddy Chuck sitting outside his tattoo shop. So I sit down and bullshit with him. He's in long-term recovery. So everywhere I go, recovery's there.
It's amazing. Like it's like that. It's that tribe that you didn't know existed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I wish more people would go into the rooms and grasp this instead of doing the litmus tests like I did for another 28 years.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so let's hear a little bit about that era. Like, so you go in, so you went to rehab. Were you able to quit the cocaine?
Oh yeah, I quit everything. I stayed sober a year and went to meetings every day, but I never got a sponsor, and I thought starting businesses would be good. And I actually started competing in barefoot water skiing. In that summer of 1990, I won Illinois State, Michigan State, Wisconsin State, and I slotted to win the Nationals. And at the Midwest Regionals, I fell and blew out L4, L5, S1 in my lower back, and my career was over instantly. Dr. Wu introduced me to 300 Vicodin in a month. And at the time, I didn't like opiates. So I went back to smoking weed. 2 days later, I'm drinking. As soon as I'm drinking, I'm back to cocaine. And very quickly, I'm sitting there with myself, by myself, crying to myself, going, how'd I get in this situation again? I can't stop. Sold off my business. My partner at the water ski school brought it down to Boca Raton, Florida. 30 years later, he still runs that water ski school down here. But anyhow, I started the relocation. I moved to Texas with my best friend. pulled some credit card fraud on him. Got to spend some time in the Travis County Jail.
Nice. Well, Chad also did some fraud as well. Yes.
Man, don't be fucking airing me out like that, dude. Goddamn, dude.
I'll tell you though,
What part of Texas did you go to?
Austin.
Austin. Okay. Good.
I lived
good
on
city.
9th in Oakland.
A good city to keep it weird.
Yeah, it's a great city to do fraud in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's how fucking stupid I was. So I'm living with my buddy Trace and his family. His mom had died and his dad abandoned him, and he had a huge trust account coming and found out his uncle who manages the estate spent it all in the oil fields. But I was his family, and my thinking is I started using again, but I need to get him something for Christmas. So I took his credit card information, hopped on my motorcycle, went to Circuit City, filled out a credit app, and I put him as the co-signer. And these idiots gave me $1,500 credit. So I get the most expensive video recorder camera. I went right to a pawn shop, pawned it for $500. Went and bought Trace a custom Harley Davidson buck knife and bought myself some crack. Now my thinking is,
what a good friend.
Nice for Christmas, and he thought, "I got TR. This is the best gift ever. I love you." Well, my thinking was, I'm going to get sober after Christmas, which I did. I started going to the Bolden group. I met some guys marketing cable television door to door that were all sober, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to work. I'll get a paycheck. I'll go get it out of the pawn shop. I'll return it. Nobody will know. I forgot that they send you a bill in the mail. So I get selling cable one day, and Trayson's on the front porch. He's got all my stuff packed up, and he's like, TR, how could you do this to me? And I grabbed my stuff and left, and a couple days later, I got arrested for a credit card fraud. And being a white guy on an all-black deck in the Travis County Jail didn't go too well. I got my ass kicked every day and got out of there, and then I started traveling the country. I hightailed it out of Texas. I had a warrant out for 20 years. Finally took care of all that, and then I started traveling the country with these sober guys selling cable television door to door, and we're making a bunch of money, and we're in Michigan, and then I was in Buffalo, New York. Then we went to California, and I got a call to go back to Buffalo the next year and start my own company, and I did. And I shacked up with a lady whose husband had worked for me the year prior. Showed up with a bottle of Captain Morgan, never left, started this business. Within 6 months, I had 60 people working for me. I've got one of the fastest growing cable marketing companies in the country. I'm profiting 30, 40 grand a week. I made my first $1 million that year.
Wow.
Burned it to the ground within 2 years because my cocaine dealer became my best friend. I'd give him 20 grand a month and say, bring me an ounce every day. I was so delusional. My ego was through the roof. But in hindsight, I buried that business, and all those 60 families were out of work because I'm the guy that couldn't put my hand up and say, I need some help. Buried that. I went from making, 30, 40 grand a week to burying the business, owing the IRS 80 grand, $250,000 in debt, moving back to mommy and daddy's, and I took a job for a $300 a week draw as a headhunter. And I started in the recruiting business, made a bunch of money, went back to using. A year later, I went to work for one of our clients, a management consulting firm in Chicago. And I always had work ethic. If my boss was in the office at 6:30, I was in at 6. If he left at 7 at night, I left at 7:30. So he thought I was the next best thing to sliced bread. And they thought I'd hire 3 to 5 people a month. I was hiring 30 to 40, and they had me on a very accelerated commission plan. And very quickly, I'm the fifth highest guy paid in a $75 million a year business with 14 locations. And I got the new custom Harley, the new custom skin antique boat, a pearl white Jeep. And I'd interview everyone at the Bennigan's restaurant because I could drink all day and do cocaine.
Shout out Bennett. Hold on. Shout out Bennigan's.
Shout out Bennigan's.
Right.
Avenue in the 90 and the 3 Towers. And,
right.
I'd be home at night, though, 2 a.m, slamming vodka because I'm out of cocaine, trying to pass out because I got to get up at 4:30 to get ready to be to the office. And every night I'm with myself, by myself, crying to myself because I couldn't stop. I had all these things that made me feel I'm making $500,000 a year. I got a boat, I got a Harley, and none of that mattered because I was lost inside. And I met a lady at work. We started dating. She had a 3-year-old son. 5 months later, she tells me she's pregnant. So I dragged her to the courthouse and I married her. And I adopted Nicholas. And then we had Max. And 9 months after Max was born, she was pregnant with Tanner. We had Tanner. 9 months after Tanner was born, she was pregnant with Abby. So, one thing I was good at was making babies. Taking care of them, it's a whole different concept.
Sure.
At about that time, my wife realized she's living with a full-blown alcoholic and cocaine addict. And I was working for another management consulting firm. We had a beautiful townhouse in the suburbs, and I'd been up on a couple-day cocaine bender. And when I woke up the next morning or afternoon, whatever time of day, my 14-month-old son, Max, was crawling towards my home office up in the loft. And I remember it like yesterday. And I picked him up and I put him back in his play area. And I opened my office door and there was cocaine all over the floor.
Oh.
Because I'm the guy that get a 1/4 ounce rock and just crush it up and sniff it because I so whacked out. If he would have ate one of those rocks of cocaine, it would have killed my son. So immediately, man, I started going to the West Suburban Fellowship Club in Naperville, Illinois. It had literally opened 2 days prior. One of the founders became my sponsor. I started my own business. I built a beautiful 5-bedroom, 3-car garage house out in the suburbs. Life was fucking good. And then I met Joel. I'm about 14 months sober. I'm going to meetings, kind of working the steps. Got a sponsor, but I don't.
What year are we at here?
Right now we are in 1999, 2000.
Okay. All right.
And I meet Joel. God's got such a funny sense of humor. I met two guys. I met Joel Aarons and I met Jim Gallery. And I can use both their names because they're both fucking dead. True story. Joel and I and Jim all become friends. And Jim Gallery worked at the Chicago Board of Trade, as did my dad. My dad was senior vice president at AF Hutton. He had worked there 28 years, never missed a day of work. And Jim goes, hold on, who's your dad? I said, Tom Ryan. He goes, do you know your dad's secretary, Kathy Gallery? I said, I've known Kathy 20 years. Why? He said, Kathy's my sister. He said, I'm a bonds trader down in Chicago. So Jim and I became best friends. Unfortunately, he took his life from depression 7 years ago. Rest your soul, Jimbo. And then we met Joel. And Joel and I started hanging out. And he tells me that he used to work for a place in Chicago 10 years prior called On Time Courier. They delivered packages. They were bike messengers. And I said, On Time Courier, Randolph Street. Mike was your boss, right? He goes, how the hell do you know my boss? I said, did you know Darris? He goes, is that hillbilly from Louisiana with the red pickup truck? I said, that's Darris. He goes, how do you know Darris? I said, I lived across the street from Darris in college. He is my best friend. And when I moved back to Chicago, I dragged Darris with me. Well, they worked for this place, On Time Courier, but it was really a front to deliver drugs all over Chicago. So Joel and I became good friends. And about 3 weeks later, he asked me to come down to Chicago to help move out of his apartment, which I did. Now I'm 14 months sober. And as Joel's doing whatever, some guy pops out of a bedroom and he goes, who are you? What are you doing here? I said, my name's Tim. I'm helping Joel move out. I said, who are you? He said, I'm Sava, Joel's roommate. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing heroin. You want to do some? Sure. That quick.
Wow, dude. So 14 months sober, and then you just got, oh, here's some heroin.
So I snorted one bag. And motherfucker, that's what I thought I was looking for. And Sava's dead too. Sava died from an overdose 8 years ago. So all these guys that I used to roll with are all dead because they couldn't grasp this thing called recovery. But that one bag of heroin, fast forward, turned into a 12-year habit. At the peak of my addiction, I was banging 5 grams of heroin a day. I've overdosed 8 times. I've been clinically dead 3. I've had 2 mild heart attacks from the cocaine days. And probably 20 plus county jails, and I've been to prison twice, all related to driving my vehicles to go buy heroin. Because I got DUIs and I lose my license and I keep driving. And hell, I got 4 driving on revokes in a year. I got my second one and my fourth one in Chicago in a different part of town by the same fucking cop, Officer White. The man got me twice. So that gets me my first year in prison, January 25th of 2008. I get sentenced to a year in prison, or I can take 6 months in county jail, Cook County, but I got to do the whole 6 months. I said, shit, send me to prison. I'll do 61 days. I'm released, but now I'm a convicted felon. Big deal.
Right.
Let's go. I remember my kids, Nick was probably 12, 13. Max was 10. Tanner was 9. And Abby was 8 years old. And I told my kids I was going to India on business for 2 months because I worked in the technology space, because you surely don't tell your poor kids that
Right.
their hero father is going to prison because he can't stop buying heroin and driving cars. So I can remember when I got down to Southern Illinois to Vienna prison. It's in the middle of the Shawnee National Forest. It was a minimum security. All I did was get commissary, read books, and get a tan every day. But I would call home, and on the caller ID, it would come up prison. And I remember my former wife saying, hey, your dad's calling from the prison hotel in India. Do you want to talk to him?
Right. I was
That's
like,
good.
There you go. I like that.
But here when I got out and I got back, I remember my mommy and daddy picked me up because they were driving back from Florida, and took their little convict son home. And
Right.
my oldest son knew, and I told Nick what was up.
How old
And
was
then,
Nick? How old was Nick at this time?
13.
Okay.
13. Like Nick, I treated Nick like my friend. I didn't treat him as a father. I let him smoke weed in the house, drink with his buddies in the basement, trip on acid. I was the dad that figured, oh, they're at my house, they're safe. Of course, I'm
Right.
upstairs banging heroin. And as soon as I got out of prison, I started another executive search firm. I had a recruiting firm in the high frequency trading space and the technology and finance space, and I did really well. But people like, how'd you make money? Well, fuck. I go play someone making 400 grand base salary. I'm getting $100,000 fee. So I would
Yeah.
hone in on these high end people. It might take me a month to close the deal, but now I got enough money to rock and roll for the next 3 or 4 months. And I
Right.
had an office in the Wrigley building, but my dealer's wife died, so I had to go see him, and I start using again, and it was just chaos. And then December 16th of 2010, I drove one more time. I remember my wife was in the shower, and I had 1 bag of heroin left, so I sneaked the van out while she's in the shower, and I head to Chicago. And I remember her calling and begging me, I know what you're doing, turn around, I'll take you. You shouldn't be driving. I get to my dealer's, and he's dead now because he killed himself because his wife died. So I'm dealing with his brother, Flacco, and Flacco's got a kilo of pure heroin. He's like, Tim, be careful. This is pure. So I snort a little and buy what I buy, and I leave, and I pull into a McDonald's on Grand Avenue in Cicero. I remember it like yesterday. And I make a big rig of dope. I bang it up, and I sat there to make sure I didn't OD. And I put my stuff behind the driver's seat, and I start driving. And then it was like a kaleidoscope, looking down a kaleidoscope as a kid. And next thing I remember, I'm being wheeled on a gurney into a West Suburban hospital, being told I just killed 2 people. I
Oh,
had
wow.
overdosed while driving. I hit 2 cars, and I put 4 people in the hospital, one being a 9-month-old baby. And I remember the chaos in the ER, and I tried to run, and they handcuffed me to the bed. And I remember the nurse coming in and saying, we've got to get blood and urine. And she walked out of the room, and I'm like, if they don't get blood and urine, I'll beat this because they can't prove I was on heroin. So I looked at the cop. I said, I have no insurance. Let's roll. Take me and book me. And they took me to the holding station. And another cop comes in. He says, man, you want a cigarette? I said, yes, please. And he sat down and he put his arm around me. And he said, "Hey, man, I want to apologize to the way my partner talked to you." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, when he called you a junkie, he doesn't like you people." He said his brother just recently died from an overdose and he blames people like you. And I said, "I get it." So I spent a week in jail, manipulated mommy into putting up the 50 grand to get me out. Took 10 hours to bail me out. My wife's sitting out there waiting for me. We drive an hour home, not a word said, pull into the garage. I walk into my home office and I said, "Jesus, I'm really sorry." And I said, "Did you happen to go to the van?" She said, "Yeah, I found the van." She said, "I went there and I got your glasses. They're on the desk. Your coat's in the closet." And as she turned around to walk away, she said, "Oh, we'll talk in the morning, but you do know all the kids' Christmas presents were hidden in the back of the van and they're almost all gone." She said, "Great job, Father of the Year." She went upstairs. I put on my glasses. I went and opened my coat pocket. There was all the heroin the cops never found. I went right back to shooting dope because that's what addicts do.
Right.
Christmas morning, I got up, opened whatever gifts, shot to Chicago, got more dope. Monday, I retained the best lawyer I could find, and I started fighting this case for 21 months. I was high as a kite every time. October 30th, 2012, I was sentenced to 7 years in prison. When I went in, I weighed 158 pounds. I was skin and bone. I was walking death. I'm 6'1", 195 right now. I look like an AIDS victim.
Right.
And I snuck 60 bags of heroin into the jail.
Oh,
And
no.
now, who's the dumbass that wears a fucking Hell's Angels jacket to court? I do. But I had stopped at the dealers on the way down and I bought 4 jabs of heroin that got about 14 bags. And this poor Polish cab driver, I'm in the back just snorting cocaine. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Shut up. Here's $100. Take me to the courthouse. I'm going to effing prison." And I'd hit all these bags in my Carhartt coat. So I go to court, sentence me to 7 years, and they take me in back. And I tell the CO, I said, "Dude, you need to go get Dick, my lawyer, because I need my coat." He said, "No, you don't." I said, "It's cold in those bullpens, and it's got my wallet and my phone." So the CO
And
goes and gets
and my
and my
heroin.
heroin.
Right.
The dumb CO goes and gets the coat and gives it to me, and I give Dick my wallet and phone and say goodbye. And as I walk into the holding cell, all the bags of heroin are falling on the ground. So I was able to get them in, and I just wanted to stay high until I saw the doctor so I wouldn't be dope sick. And
Right.
then 3 days later, I'm transferred to Northern Illinois Receiving Center adjacent to Stateville. The sickness kicked in. You're locked down 24/7 until they figure out what prison they're shipping you to. And man, I shit and puke myself for 2 weeks straight. It was hell on earth. I did not sleep a
Right.
wink for a month. No
Well,
sleep.
I have a
Nothing.
question. So did they have I guess it was methadone back then, no Suboxone or anything like
No, they
that?
didn't. They don't do that shit. No, they don't do that in Cook County Jail because all they do is sell it.
Right.
No,
Okay.
it was cold turkey. It was cold turkey, man. Cold turkey.
Okay.
But about 2 weeks in, I got over shitting and puking myself, and I'm looking out of my cell, and I just said, "God, higher power, a la Buddha Fred. Whatever's out there, please take away this obsession and compulsion to use, and I swear I will turn my will and life over to you." And I kind of chuckled, and I said, "God, if you're really there, please get me into Sheridan Prison." And the next morning, I was transferred to Sheridan Prison. And in Illinois, there's 28 prisons, and 2 had therapeutic drug treatment programs, and I got into one.
Right.
And it's a funny story. So they get you up. You stay up till about 3 in the morning because they go by the cells and they drop a bag with your belongings, and it has a number on it. And if it was 23, you're going to Sheridan, and I get that. Then they take you out of your cell, and whoever's getting shipped that day, you're in these bullpens because they rush you to see the doctor. And I'm the only white guy in this bullpen of about 40 guys. And all I hear is, "On my mama, keep it 100, on my mama." And I'm like, who is this fucking bozo with "on my mama"? Quelo. So Quelo's the shot caller talking all his shit. And I get handcuffed next to Quelo on the bus, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I got to listen to Quelo, and he was a Stone gang chief. He had been in and out of prison. He was ripped. And it was like a badge of honor. He's like, so what'd you get? Oh, I got a 6-piece. I got a 12-piece. I got a 20-piece. Like, ooh, I'm going down for 20 years. You're really cool. And there's a white guy in the back of the bus with 2 guards sit next to him, and he's double shackled. And Quelo looks at him and says, so, Whitey, what'd you do? And the guy calmly says, I caught my girlfriend cheating on me, so I cut off her head and her boyfriend's head, and I FedExed him to her fucking mother. And
Some Hannibal Lecter shit.
The whole bus went silent, and we went silent. Then we pull into Sheridan, and I get off the bus, and I look up to God, and I said, on my mama, don't let this idiot Quelo be my cellie. And sure as shit, Quelo's my cellie. So you got to do 30 days in the seg building, and you only get out 1 hour a day, and you got to wear these baby blue Smurf jump outfits because it was a very structured therapeutic program, but it's still a medium prison. So we go to day room that night, and I'm like, I got to get to the phone so I can get some money on my books. And Quelo says, I'll get you to the phone first if your wife makes a call to Peaches, my wife. I said, done. Sure shit, come on, Tim, let's go. You're first in line on the phone. I'm thinking to myself, Quelo must have some pull in here. So when day room's over in an hour, we go back, and Quelo's like, hey, Tim, help me get my jumpsuit off. I said, look, boy, I don't roll that way, and I'll throw down with you right now. He goes, man, I'm not gay. And I help him pull it off, and all these ramen noodles, chili ramen noodles are falling. And he's got 2 pads of paper. I said, what's going on? He said, dude, I'm a gang chief. I'm fucking plugged. They take care of me in here. He said, half of this, it's yours. You're my cellie. We eat together. I'm like, Quelo, I like you. So that's my Quelo journey, but it gets better. So
all right. Hey, wait. Can we pause there real quick?
I don't know. Let me think about advertisers. Should we let advertisers or should we not? Because we need you guys to listen up. We've got some great advertisements coming in. So pause, listen to them, and buy their products.
There you go. Hey, guys. Kelly Reverb here. Yep, you guessed it. We have no sponsor. Hey, so if you want to be a sponsor of the show, be sure and hit me up on thispinkcloud@gmail.com. Also, hit the link tree, please. We could always use your support. There is a one-time donation. There is a monthly support button, all that stuff. Also, we're doing shout-outs. So if you want a shout-out, we can work that out. And if you want to be a guest, hit me up. All this good stuff can happen via email at thispinkcloud@gmail.com. All right. Well, we appreciate your continued support. We always love you guys. All right. And we are back. Be sure and, check them out, whatever that was. Hey, and also we've got some new music, and here it is. All right, and that's our new stuff, and it's doing quite well, right, Chad?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what we're advertising.
That was our new music.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that one. Oh, that new music. Okay, yeah, it's doing great.
Yeah,
it's doing great. It's really interesting because it's like. It's got this beat to it, right? You know, it's really good stuff.
Sure. But be sure and give us a follow on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff. And while you're there, obviously, follow the podcast. Anyway, so back to Tim Ryan and Tales of Quelo.
Tales of Quelo. So I do 30 days in SAG. And you've got to, I mean, they had this prayer on the wall. We're here because there's no refuge, finally from ourselves, until a person confronts himself in the eyes and others, blah, blah, blah. You had to memorize this prayer to get out of your baby blue Smurf outfit. I watched this young black kid get up there, and he looks at it, and he's talking to himself, and he turns around, and he just starts reciting this thing. It took me 3 months to be able to memorize it because of my learning disabilities. And I was grateful to get my dress blues. But anyhow, then you go to orientation hall, which is a huge building, 1, 2, 3 floors, 100 guys a floor, and they're kind of integrating you and talking steps and all this kumbaya bullshit. And I ran almost every group in there because I'd been around the rooms for 20 years, and I could quote the big book like the back of my hand. And there'd be like, who can name the 12 steps? I can. Who can name the 12 traditions? I can.
Yeah, now are you the guy that can hit the Roman numerals too?
Nah, don't get me that twisted here, and don't ask me history because I don't care about Dr. Bob and going to his house and Bill and Eddie. I don't study all that stuff.
I got you.
Hey, the people that do, good for them. I'm not reinventing the fucking wheel here.
Right.
And I'm not going to Akron, Ohio to pray next to his bed. That's just not what I do. So you see all these new guys in recovery, and they're down there praying at the bed like, Jesus, you're the 50,000th moron to do the same thing. But anyhow, I'm joking around.
Right.
So anyhow, I get transferred to one of the little buildings in back. And that's where you wanted to be because it's less guys. And this is where my life changed. I walk into the cell, and there is this big black guy, 400 pounds, sitting on the bunk reading an AA big book. And I kind of walk in. I said, hey, man, what's up? And he looks up at me like I bothered him. And he's like, hey, Whitey, you into recovery? That's exactly what he said. I said, yeah, man, I'm into recovery. He said, hey, I'm Big Perk. I said, hey, Big Perk, I'm Tim. And he says, if you ain't in recovery, you ain't coming in this fucking cell because that's all we do in here. And I said, I'm in recovery. He said, well, great. And then he looks at me and he says, Tim, I think I'm going to call you Powder. I said, you can call me whatever the hell you Big Perk was a Chicago gang chief with the conservative vice lords for 30 years. He was a ruthless man. He had spent 23 years of his life 10 different times in prison. He ran the gangs. His cousin had stolen $25,000 from him from their money room. So he duct taped him to a chair and he ripped his lips off with a set of ice grips.
Holy
that's
shit.
That's a man who I'm sharing a cell with. And that man is my dearest friend in the world today. Because all we did was go through the 12 steps of AA, NA. We read the Bible. We read 400 or 500 books on business.
Well, now, did he end up being your sponsor, or did you ever get a sponsor?
Well, we went through the steps together in that cell. We actually wrote 2 business plans. See, I wasn't in prison to get a TV and kick back and do push-ups for noodles. I was there to fucking change, and that's what I did. We sat in the day room in the morning, did our 3-hour group. We went to lunch, walked the yard, we had a meeting. We sat in the day room at night, we had a meeting. I watched a corn grow get cut down. My worst fear in prison was my kid was going to die from an overdose because prior to me going in, when I got in the car accident, now everyone knows I'm a heroin addict. And about 3 months into fighting my case, I'm really dope sick and I'm taking a hot bath. And Nick, who's now 18, comes in the bathroom. He's like, what's wrong, Dad? I said, what do you think, you idiot? I'm dope sick. And he says, not anymore. And he threw 2 bags of heroin on the counter. So I got out of the tub and I did him. I went in my son's room and I said, Nick, what in the fuck are you doing? I said, this isn't weed. This is heroin. You need to shut this down. He said, Dad, I'm just selling a little. And I said, Nick, you know what this drug has done to me. And my son looked me dead in the eyes and he said, Dad, you're a successful drug addict. And I said, why would you say that? And he said, well, look, we got a beautiful house. You have an office in the Wrigley building. You make a good living. See, in my son's delusional mind, because I functioned, he thought I was successful.
Right.
I caught him doing heroin about 5 months later, and my son and I started using heroin together. That's how Nick and I bonded. Doing drug runs to Chicago. And then I go to prison. He was in treatment 2 more times while I was in prison. My wife divorced me. We lost our home in foreclosure. I displaced my 4 kids. They lost their childhood home because of me, because I'm the father that couldn't put his hand up and stop drinking and using drugs. I love my kids more than anything in the world, but I love drugs and alcohol more at the time. I walked out 3 years to the day I caught my case. December 16th of 2013, I walked out of prison 13 and a half months clean and sober for the first time in my life. I had went through the steps. My ex-wife picked me up, took me to the Apple store. I got an iPhone, took me to lunch, and dropped me off at the townhouse my mom and her had secured. And I called my mom. She said, Tim, the rent's paid for 3 months. I'll put $100 a week in your bank account, and you're on your own. I hope you stay sober. And all the furniture my ex-wife and my sons had moved in, because it was all in storage, because they're now living with my ex-wife's mom. And I got out, and 2 days out of prison, I got a FedEx package in the mail, and it was a check for $5,000 from the recruiting firm I was working for. And the owner found out I got out, and he owed me a commission check, and that man held on to that. He did not need to pay me, and he sent it to me. So I called my ex. I said, get over here. I gave her $2,500. She's like, where'd you get this? The kids are going to have a great Christmas. And I said, well, I got to start cleaning up my wreckage. I went back into the technology space. I commuted 2.5 hours each day to work one way. I commuted 5 hours total by 2 trains and a bus to become a recruiter. I went to meetings every night. 3 months in, I called my mom. I said, Mom, I need to borrow 15 grand. And she said, for what? I said, I don't want to be a recruiter. I want to help people, and I want to set up a nonprofit called a Man in Recovery Foundation. My motto is, we're going to take people from dope to hope, helping one addict at a time. And my mom said, I have one question. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, are you going to pay me back this time? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, I'll put the money in your account tomorrow. I wish you the best of luck. I set up a number of support groups. I set up a nonprofit thinking I'm going to save the world. And I stumbled into working into the treatment industry. At 19 months sober, I'm out of prison, 13, 14, 15, 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest son, Nick, is in treatment for the 6th time.
What year is this?
This is 2014.
Okay.
It was February of 2000, February, March, April of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even June. So I go meet Nick, and he's like, Dad, he had been in there about 3 weeks, and he's like, Dad, fuck, you're 19 months sober. I'm 3 weeks. He goes, I'm going to get into a sober living, and I'm going to get a year sober, and me and you are going to go speak in high schools together, a father and son team. And I'm like, let's do it. Right. 30 days out of treatment, he's back in jail, did 45 days. He got out. His mom picked him up, fed him, said, we're done. Not coming to Dad's, not coming to my house. All you do is lie, cheat, and steal. And, well, my girlfriend and I are getting an apartment. And 5 days later, I called Nick, and I said, hey, bud, come to my house and get some Narcan. And he said, Dad, I'm not on that bullshit. He said, I got a sponsor. Alexis and I are getting an apartment. I'm going to meetings. Life is good. And I'm like, great. Let's do a meeting. He said, we will. August 1st, 2 days later, I got a phone call from Nick's mom at 6 in the morning. And Shannon was frantic. She said, Tim, get out of bed. I said, I'm up. She said, I'll be at your house in 5 minutes. Nick overdosed again, and it's not good. And she picked me up, and I normally don't share this part of the story. She picked me up, and I got in her car, and I plugged my iPhone into her charger, and it automatically looped up my Spotify playlist, and a song comes on by a band by the name of 6 a.m. And 6 a.m. was founded by Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue, the lead bassist, who's 25 years sober from heroin, and he had wrote a book called The Heroin Diaries, and he started this band 6 a.m. at the same time, and they're all heroin related songs. And the song that came on was a song called Courtesy Call, and it's about someone being found dead in a hotel bathroom from an overdose. So I unplugged my phone. We shot to the hospital. We ran in, Tim and Shannon Ryan here to see our son Nicholas. He overdosed, and 30 seconds later, the chaplain walked out. I knew my son was dead instantly. And I remember they took us to the doctor, and he's trying to, your son. And I said, is he alive or fucking dead? And he said he didn't make it. And I will never, ever forget that scream of his mother, because it's burned into my soul. And I went into the next room, and there's my 20-year-old son's cold, lifeless body, the aspirator still in his mouth. And God, he just looked so beautiful and so at peace. And I remember thanking God for taking him through an overdose, because it's painful. And I mean, it's painless and peaceful versus being shot or mangled in a car wreck or having to die from some traumatic disease he suffered. And I called my sponsor. I was surrounded by men in recovery, and I went to a meeting that night, and I never looked back. That Wednesday, the next day, I'm on the front page of the Chicago Sun-Times, and it says, anti-heroin crusader loses son to overdose. We did my son's service that Wednesday night at the church. I run my support groups. And ironically, we did Nick in a one-shot service. There was about 1,000 people there. Half of them I didn't know. They were people in recovery that came to support a father who lost his son. And the next night, I had an Narcan training event planned, and it had already been in the works. So I show up the next day after laying my son to rest at that church to do the Narcan training event, and every news show from Chicago was in the parking lot, and they all wanted to interview me. And I said, let's go, let's talk about this. And that spun me into the television world of Chicago, Illinois. And then Bill and Wendy's show, the biggest daytime radio show, calls me. I did that show 50 times in 4 years, and they give me an hour. And I had my nonprofit, and I'm working in treatment, and we give out my numbers. And I had a team of 10 guys. We helped over 10,000 people in 4 years from that. And then I wrote a book, and I had a documentary of my life, a show called Dope Man on A&E, and I met another psychopath in the
What's the
room.
book? What's the book called?
From Dope to Hope.
Okay.
Tim Ryan, From Dope to Hope, a man in recovery.
I will have to look that. Is there I hope there's an audiobook.
Well, you can call my son Maxwell, who's been working on the audio book for 2 years, and ask him how well that's coming along. So you're going to have to get on Amazon, order one, and go old school and read it.
And actually read it. Okay.
But, so I had that pop. And then my book comes out. Then 2016, I'm a guest of the State of the Union address. And that was a trip, because I'm at O'Hare, and I see Ben Bradley and a couple news reporters. And Ben comes up, he goes, "You're Tim Ryan." I said, "Yeah." He said, "When the plane lands, we're interviewing you. We're here to interview. You're the dad going to the State of the Union address." And that was probably the coolest experience of my life. And this congressman that brought me showed up at my kid's funeral. But I'm sitting at the State of the Union address. Michelle Obama or Mike Obama is 8 people away from me, and I'm sitting in the room with the most powerful people in the world. Because my kid died from an overdose, and I'm trying to make a difference. And then the next year, my book came out. And the next year, my TED Talk came out. And then my documentary came out on A&E. And then I'm speaking, I'm doing interventions, I'm traveling the country, I'm doing the doctors' TV shows, Steve Harvey, Lisa Lang, Abrams, Angle, Fox and Friends, you name it, I've done it. But I use those as a platform to carry a message of hope and recovery.
Right.
And a little over 6 years ago, I I had to walk away from the relationship I was in. The only good thing is I have a beautiful 9.5-year-old daughter that's never seen her dad drink or do drugs. And I was looking to partner with a female for speaking events, interventions, maybe opening a treatment center, because as the more events I was doing, more women were coming up and spewing their trauma. And I'm like, look, I'm not a therapist. I'm a guy in recovery. So I'd
Right.
reached out to this lady, Jennifer Jimenez, who was a former supermodel and an actress. She was in Blow, Vanilla Sky, Charlie's Angels, Sweetest Thing. And then when she got sober, she ran Sober House with Dr. Drew and Celebrity Rehab and Rehab with Dr. Drew and Four Seasons Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. But she
Right.
was a OG sober bombshell, and she was beautiful, but I wanted to partner. And I shot her a message, and 6 weeks later, I fly to Florida to meet her. And man, it was love at first sight. I took her to the treatment center I was working for. We got her a job offer. I took her to an early dinner, and I've known Jennifer Jimenez 4 hours. And
Mm-hmm.
I looked her right in the eyes and I said, I'm going to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you. And she says, hold on here. She goes, maybe you want to finish that second divorce. I said, that'll be done in 5 weeks. She goes, go sow your oats, play the field. I said, I don't operate that way. I was divorced 5 weeks later. I moved to LA with Jen. We were engaged 4 months later. We got married that year, December 31st of 2019, at the Justice of the Peace in Beverly Hills with her mom and my little daughter. And we've been together ever since. And now we live between LA and Lake Worth Beach, Florida, and we do interventions. We just
Right.
finished a year-long concierge treatment program with a severe mentally ill individual. And fuck,
What did her?
this
Well,
will
I
be.
got it.
I'm gonna
I
stop you. Hold on.
yeah.
This is a big fucking reveal here. Wow.
Sorry.
You fuckers better understand you're real lucky here, because I haven't talked to anybody about this. Nowhere in the country. My wife and I are opening our own health and wellness center, 12-step based, 90-day cash pay program on steroids here in Boynton Beach, Florida. Opening date, we're looking at July 1st. Enigma Wellness, powered by Tim Ryan and Jennifer Jimenez. Bam, there you go.
Nice. There we go.
Yeah.
Sorry for stepping on that, dude.
That's what's
So
up.
all
Yeah.
I do is talk. I haven't let Chad say a word.
Hey, it's probably better that way. Hey, so I have a question. So, well, first off, where can they look it up on? Is there like a website for that Enigma recovery?
Not yet. Nope.
Not yet? Okay.
Everything will be popping out. We'll start feeding things out very quickly, but we'll have everything, website and all that'll be launched within the next
Right,
30
and it's
days.
probably you probably have a website as well, right?
Oh yeah, my website is dopetohope.com. DOPETOHOPE.com, dope.com. You can
Okay.
find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Tim Ryan Dope Man, or you can find my wife Jennifer Jimenez, GIMENEZ, on all platforms. Spell that name and you'll find her. And she's
I
much
like it.
better looking than I am.
The question I was gonna ask is, what does Jennifer's mom think when you're, what is her take on it? It's like, Jennifer, you should know better than to hook up with a guy like this. That's after a short window, right? Like it was, like
It's
you
so
said.
funny you say that. We're flying to LA Monday. I'm going to spend 12 days. I'm putting my car on a truck, shipping it here, and I'm coming back with my mother-in-law for the next month so she can hang out with us down here. But I'll tell you what, I didn't know what true love was until Jen walked into my life, and she's
Mhm.
made me a better human, a better business partner, a better man, a better father. And I couldn't imagine my life without my wife or my badass mother-in-law, because they are the
Right.
best. I just don't like sitting with the both of them because they start talking in other languages, and I always think they're talking about me.
Right.
Argentina, so what am I supposed to do? But boy, I'll tell you that my mother-in-law, if I ever get out of this business, I'm opening a chimichurri stand, and all I'm doing is selling her chimichurri because she makes it better than anyone.
Oh, nice. I love it. I love it.
You don't even know what chimichurri is.
I do.
I
yeah.
do, yeah. Well, hey, look,
All
we're
right,
from
good.
Texas, brother.
Yeah, dude.
We're from Texas, dude. We're from
Yeah, steers
Texaco.
and queers, and I don't see any horns on you.
That's right, dude. But
Are you guys in Dallas?
yeah,
You
that
know,
is
my
correct.
other down there, little M2.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah,
know him.
M2 The Rock, Michael Molson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike, I just talked to Michael yesterday.
Oh, nice. So y'all like friends, like hang out friends?
I flew in probably 7 years ago when he first started doing that, did his show. I'll tell you what, Michael got me introduced to some judges at the drug courts there, and I really did a lot of work with a lot of the families struggling there. And when I
Well,
come in to meet people, I
yeah.
like meeting people, but I want to know how I can better help the communities that they're in, because a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know how to navigate judges and prosecutors. And I've got so many prosecutors on speed dial where I can literally
Right.
call them and say, hey, sir, you have John Doe in jail. I want to have you release him to my custody for 6 months. This is what I'm doing. And I'll walk into court, and I've had judges or the prosecutors be like, nothing's happening. And next thing the judge is like, oh, hi, Mr. Ryan, release him to Mr. Ryan immediately.
Right.
And it works because we're getting people well. So
Yeah, you're getting results. We actually had Judge Roach from Collin County. He's responsible for the veterans program. So it's kind of funny that you say that, but we also, are huge advocates for, solutions. We try to, highlight solutions. I mean, yeah, we've all had a shit show, the history, but then the whole point of the game, the show, period, is to try to help people and, pay it forward.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring that up, solution. And I do meetings all over the country, and they're different. And I can remember when my wife said, Tim, wait till you get to LA. The recovery's different here. And we got into it right away, and then COVID hit and flipped our business upside down, and we lost everything because we had shifted to speaking, and I had to cancel 80 events and 80,000 in refunds and lost $500,000 in business. So we started a podcast. And then I met a guy who was 71 days sober. He was a comedian and an actor, and he was doing an outside comedy event in the heat of COVID. And we became best friends. He just had 4 years on Wednesday. But about 6 months later, that guy called me. His name's Jay. And he said, Tim, I don't know what's going on with you, but you're angry. You're resentful. You're not the guy I met 6 months ago. And it just came out. I said, I've been having thoughts of killing myself. And this was 3.5 years ago. And I got stagnant. So I got a new sponsor. I saw this guy speak at a meeting, didn't know who he was. I liked his message. I went up. I said, hey, I'm from Chicago. At the time, I'm 9 years sober. I'm looking for a new sponsor, and I got this guy. My sponsor's got 36 years sober today. He's lead singer of a huge band. He's one of the biggest music producers in the country. And when I met with him, now this guy travels the world. He says, when's the last time you went through the steps? I said, it's been a while. He said, well, with me, you do 220 big book studies a year. We'll do 20 weeks, and we'll do another 20 weeks. He goes, you'll be at my house every Thursday. You'll be at this meeting, Bread and Roses, every Saturday. He goes, do you do a gratitude list? I said, no, what's that? So now I do a gratitude list. I share it with 180 guys every morning. He said, are you into meditation? I said, not really. He said, you're going to get into transcendental meditation. He said, how many commitments do you have at meetings? I said, none. He said, you'll have 3. He said, how many people you sponsor? And I said, 2. He said, good. Get 3 more. You need to have 5. And he goes, oh, if you go, he goes, you go 1 day without calling me, find a new sponsor. You want what I have, you do what I do. And that man changed my life and changed my routine. So now I get up, I sit outside, I pray, I meditate, step 11. So through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. 98% of the people in the rooms of AA, NA do not know how to meditate. So transcendental meditation, I do my readings, I do my gratitude list, I do at least two meetings a day, and then my life goes on.
Right.
Almost 12 and a half years sober, I finally have a life, and I
Well,
have
and
a
it's
beautiful.
yeah, and it's funny you said like that though. And I always point this out. Like once you get sober, it's not all unicorns and rainbows. And then
No.
you thought of killing yourself, with a good amount of sobriety, and it's because I mean, life is life, and you have to nurture your recovery and your relationship with your higher power in order to remain content or happy, in my opinion.
You're absolutely right, and sometimes we get stagnant and sometimes we need to change it up. And I only hang around people. I will only do podcasts with people that will fuel me. I don't have time. My time's fucking valuable. And if I'm going to give you my time, it better be reciprocal, unless I'm working with the family or something, just because I only want to be around people that fuel my soul and that I
Yeah.
can empower to be better people, and we empower each other. And Christ, I've been to 179, 180 funerals in 11
Yeah.
years. The first was my own son. And, I've had some big. Tom Sizemore was one of my dear friends. Seth Bisner was one of my sponsees from Crazy Town. That fucking
Right.
guy died in a park,
Yeah.
and
I saw. I
it
saw
takes a
that. That was sad.
yeah, it takes a toll on you, but that's why self care. I have a great trauma therapist. I constantly do therapy because if I'm helping people, this is what I do for a living,
Yeah.
speaking event, intervention, whatever I do, I have to be in the right mindset to help. I need to know when I need time to disconnect. And like my wife and I just rolled off this year-long project. We've taken the next month off,
Yeah.
and taken time to do absolutely nothing because we need to recharge.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I'm gonna say like I appreciate you making time for our little show. But it's just like the thing that resonated with me is that you're authentic. It's not like you're doing this, you're doing this to help people, and that's the 100% the reason why I did the show was to help people.
That's it.
Yeah,
I could go do something else and make millions of dollars. I don't give a
sure,
fuck about that. I
right.
want to. I'll end with this.
Mm-hmm.
When my son died, 2 weeks after he died, him and his mom, his mother, and I were having lunch. Potbellies, Naperville, Illinois. And she sits back in her chair and she looks at me and she says, Tim, I truly believe God put Nick and I in your life for a reason. Had you go through your struggles, had Nicholas go through his, for Nick to pass on to set the stage for what you're going to do next. She said, your 28, 30 years of active addiction were your training ground to go help people. Now help people and never look back. This was your calling from God. And that's
Yeah,
all I'm doing.
yeah, and
I'm a
that's
vessel to
that.
carry a message of recovery.
Right, and that's what Chad always says is he went through his shit show and his experience for a reason.
Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean that's the most logical thing to draw from it, and then because if I'm caught up in it and I'm still trying to live through it, then guess what? I'm not being of use to myself, and I'm a selfish, self-centered motherfucker, according to some guys who never met me in the 1930s that wrote a book about it, and that's the truth, man. So if I'm of no use to me, I'm of no use to anybody around me, and life is so much better as a useful human being than it ever will be doing anything else.
Man, you I should steal that as a quote because
Do
you
it.
just encapsulated it, and that's what it's all about. I couldn't wrap my head around the more I
But
give away, the more I get back in return.
when you quote when you quote him, you have to say that is a quote from Croissant LeMans.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to chat. We'll have to chat for
Yeah,
sure because
I would love to just talk to you off air and become homeboys.
Whenever, please do. I got to come back down. I did that big Texas rally.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Years ago. I was a keynote speaker at that. I'd love to come back. I love coming down and doing events in Texas, so let's get our asses down there.
All right,
Yeah.
man. Sounds like a plan, and I appreciate your time. Everybody, he's everywhere. Give it up for Tim Ryan, everybody.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, that was hell.
That was good.
That was
Thank you.
powerful.
And
Yeah,
I
man.
really appreciate this.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, and we appreciate what you do and your authenticity.
All right, boys.
Yeah.
I'm going.
All right.
I'm going to the beach.
Rough life, man. Rough life.
You guys go tip over some steers, and I'm going to go to the beach.
Hell yeah.
That's right.
All right, guys.
All right, brother. Thanks, Tim.
Peace out.
All right. Yeah. And then, yeah, dude, that was powerful stuff, huh?
Yeah, that was good.
That was good
We'll
stuff.
have to chat.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But, yeah, be
We'll
sure.
have to chat with Chad.
Chat
We'll
with
do a
Chad.
little chat with Chad.
Chat with Chad.
I'll have to do a little chat with Chad.
Anyway, hey, I'm excited. Next week, we've got Ralphie. Ralphie actually works at Beyond the Bar, which
okay.
is the alcohol-free bottle shop, but I'm excited for him to be on. It's going to be a great episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And remember, kids, there is no magic pill for sobriety, because if there was, we would all take too many.
Activate.